But can you run us through what the creative process was from start to finish?
What, with Andrew?
Well, yeah.
Well, I first met Andrew in 1965, and I took I'll try and keep this short. I'd written one pop song, which had got recorded. I wanted to vaguely, I was doing all the right things as per conventional middle class education. And I was a law student and I was training to be a solicitor, which I never got anywhere. But I was there for about 2 or 3 years failing exams. And I was in my spare time writing or trying to be a pop singer because I wasn't too bad at that. And it seemed to me in the mid-60s, everybody else was in the charts except for me. And I thought, well, I can sing as well as some of these guys. And I was keen to make a tape, a demo tape. This is answering your question, by the way. I was keen, so I had to make a tape of my voice. But I didn't want to sing anybody else's songs because I would be compared unfavorably with Mick Jagger or Tom Jones or whoever. So I decided to write 2 or 3 songs, which I'd done at school. I'd written 1 or 2 silly little things, but I wrote 2 or 3 songs which didn't stretch my voice too much, and also, obviously, nobody had done before. And I made this tape and sent it around to all the record companies, nil response, except once, one record company, without me knowing it, sent it on to a music publisher, because they said, these songs don't look too bad. And that wasn't why I did the tape. And I got a call from a music publisher, and they're the guys who look after the songs, the copyrights, rather than the actual records. And this music publisher, who I'd never heard of, rang me up and said, I've been sent this tape by a record company, and we think one of the songs is really good. Who wrote the songs? We don't like the voice, but who wrote the songs? And I said, oh, well, that was, I wrote the songs, and I'm sorry about the voice, but I was easier to get, I was cheap. But that's really what the tape was all about, which is an absolute lie. And the music publishers got one of the songs recorded by a group called The Night Shift. And that, I'm afraid, my song was their career. I think I buried them. But the record actually came out. And in those days, anybody now can make a CD. Any of you guys probably all have made CDs. You can go into your bedroom and make a beautiful CD with incredibly good sound and put it in a beautiful package. Back in the 60s, to make a record was difficult because very few people had a record pressing plant in their bedroom. And all records came out on 7-inch, you probably don't remember them, but they were sort of black things with a hole in the middle. And they were played with a needle, much better than all the crap today, and much more fun than downloading. But I actually, thanks to the music publisher and The Night Shift, I had my name on a 7-inch 45 RPM gramophone record. And that was really one step up. It was the bottom rung of the ladder. And it was mildly impressive. People were quite impressed by the fact my name, the record was a flop, but I was on a record, I was on the label. So wherever I went with any scatty ideas, because I was trying still to do other things, I took my little record with me. And I took my record of That's My Story, it's the name of the song, to a book publisher, because I had an idea for a book. And I was 19 and I had lots of daft ideas. And this was an idea about just listing all the charts, and which actually I did do in the end with the thing called the Guinness Book of Hit Singles, which was incredibly successful. This publisher, great publisher, didn't know anything in a way. He said, no, that won't work. What else do you do? And I said, well, I've written a song. And he played the song and he said, well, that's no good either. But he said, I do know a young man who's looking for a bloke to write with, and he's called Andrew Lloyd-Webber. And I thought, with a name like that, he'll never make it. But he said, Andrew's more interested in the theatre, but he needs a words man. And your words seem to be all right. So I went off to meet Andrew. And Andrew was 17, I think I was 19. And I met Andrew in his parents' flat in South Ken. And he sat down at the piano and said, hi, my name's Andrew. And he said, I've written 8 musicals, which he had. And he began playing these tunes, and I thought, my God, this guy's good. And I was not really into theatre. I was a great fan of a lot of scores, but I'd hardly ever been to a musical. I'd seen My Fair Lady and Salad Days, and that was about it. And I didn't live in London, or I didn't, in my childhood. And I was really into records and rock and roll. But Andrew said, would you like to write the lyrics for this musical I'm doing? And I said, oh yeah, sure. And so I did. And the first one we did didn't do anything. It was a bit unoriginal. The tunes I thought were pretty good, but it was very like Oliver, the great Lionel Bart musical. It was a bit unoriginal in style and concept. And that, we were signed up by the music publishers and by the book publisher. And they both thought this musical was great, but they couldn't get it off the ground. But we did get to make a record of it, a demo record. It was never issued publicly. And various people heard this record because we were desperately trying to get it on in the West End, and we were told by our agent, this book publisher, that it would be in the West End in 1966, and we signed contracts and we got £100 each, which seemed a fortune at the time, as an advance on our royalties in the theatre. And we were told if we went to New York with it, we'd get first-class airfares. It was fantastic, you know, and except none of this actually happened. And after about 2 years of the show not happening, a schoolmaster friend of Andrew's said, who had heard the record, he said, while you're waiting to go to Broadway, why don't you write something for my kids at school? And that was a bit of a come down because it wasn't quite as glamorous. But we didn't have to, I mean, we was kind of freed from the shackles of trying to impersonate Lionel Bart or Rodgers and Hammerstein or Lerner and Loewe. We actually thought, well, we didn't think it didn't matter, but we thought we don't have to obey any rules. And we wrote something for these kids, and I said it's got to be funny and lots of lovely tunes, and we wrote Joseph. Your original question was, what was the working relationship? I've just told you the boring story of a great chunk of my life. But the working relationship was, Andrew was obsessed by musical theatre. I was not, and I'm still not in a way, but I think that helped. I think if I'd been like Andrew, absolutely, you know, wanting to be Oscar Hammerstein, I would rather have been Mick Jagger. But I think the combination of my rock and roll upbringing and his musical theatre in things like Joseph and Superstar and Evita worked very well. Working wise, and this will be very short, when we wrote the shows we did, the first thing to do is to get a great idea for a story, which Joseph, Superstar and Evita were all good ideas. We didn't know that until it got out there, but they were all good ideas. And the story comes first, which is kind of my department. I mean, obviously in the case of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John did quite a bit towards the story. But my job was to draft it out into scenes, and I would say, well, this is a scene where they're having an argument, this is a love song, this is whatever. And then Andrew would write a tune inspired, one hopes, by the plot. You know, write the right sort of tune. And then I would put lyrics to the tune. That was the way it worked. So the music was the meat in the sandwich, if you like. But obviously, we'd all discuss at each stage. You know, we'd both be involved. And by and large, with the musical, that's been the way I've written over the years with different writers, except for Elton, who likes the tunes first. And Andrew wrote some cracking scores. I was very lucky to get, I think, in many ways, his best stuff, particularly Evita. I hear that. I don't know what he was on, but he was doing all right.